Breaking Kayfabe with Bowdren Barry. I am your host, the pride of Cumming, Georgia. Yes, it is. They call me the Booker, Jeff Bowdren. I am here with my main man, my brother from another mother, Barry Rose. Bear, how you doing today, my man?
I am doing fantastic. I'm super excited for this episode. Ken Patera, an Olympian, joining us on Breaking Kayfabe with Bowdren and Barry for our 163rd episode. This is like fucking Christmas has come early for me, Jeff.
Well, you just kind of stole my thunder. Spoiler alert, because I was going to announce that the Olympic strongman Ken Patera was our guest today. Way to go, Bear.
Sorry.
So besides the Olympic strongman Ken Patera, and folks, oh boy, do I have to tell you to get ready for that interview. Depending on how much editing is done, is that fair to say, Barry? This is a pretty entertaining interview because, there's not a lot of filter involved with Ken Patera. So if there's any filtering that's done, it'll be done by our man, the sweet man, Lou Kipilman, because... oh, boy. But we're going to call this the Dog and Heat episode. And you'll soon find out when you listen to Kenny's interview to understand that quote and why it comes into play. So besides the interview with Ken Patera, we're going to be looking at one of Ken's matches. We are going to April 21st, 1980, as Ken Patera is taking on Patterson. Two great workers, Madison Square Garden, Intercontinental title on the line. What we have, a little bit different than usual, is we have Vince McMahon Jr., Ken Patera, and the Grand Wizard himself, Ernie Roth, as they are looking at the match and commenting on it. And I got to tell you, Barry, Patera and the Wizard on commentary is just great.
They were a team, and you can see it because they play off of each other. Like it really, the commentary to me, I think, is even better in the match, but they were just playing off of each other in their timing. Grand Wizard, kind of the straight man, and then Ken Patera is the angry athlete. Just gold.
Yeah, and besides that, we are going to have another edition of F, Marry, or Kill. For the first time ever, folks, we are going to have Barry, can I say this the first time ever we're going to have one of these? A Hee Haw edition of F, Marry, or Kill. And three beautiful women. I don't think there's any question about that, Barry.
Again, there's not a dog in the bunch on this one, too. And the truth is, we've already made our decisions. But if I didn't, and one of them I had never heard of, like I didn't know who she was. But if she was in a grouping with anyone else, like just unbelievable. So, yeah, these are three Rolls Royces right here.
Sure. And we are also going to be doing Florida Man or Not.
What?
I believe Lord Barron has a few stories for me. Before we get to, I'm going to discuss my vacation. We just got back from Savannah. The eating scene in Savannah, Barry, is strong. I'll just say that. Discuss some of the meals we've had there. Want to bring up a couple of personal items in relation to our group. Posting today, the day we record, Brett Julian announced that he is battling COVID. And so, Barry, I know that you will join me in wishing Brett all the best. You fight the good fight, my brother, and kick that COVID's ass.
You know, I like Brett a lot. We've got, that's one thing about the group, too. And I don't think Brett and I had ever had any sort of communication prior to him joining our group. And it's all based off of the podcast. He is a hell of a guy. And I believe it's unfortunate, obviously, that he does have COVID. At the same time, I believe he's healthy. Otherwise, I believe he's going to be all right. I also think his wife is pregnant. I'm pretty sure that I saw that. So our thoughts are with Brett as he's fighting this. And at the same time, congratulations on your new child.
Absolutely. So next, Barry, again, before we move along with the show, a very special shout out that I want to give to a friend of the group, Rick Lunnan. Rick posted on there that his sister has found out that her breast cancer has metastasized, and he would hope that the group would send their thoughts and prayers to his sister. And so I reached out to Rick and I said, please give us some information about your sister and what she's going through. And so this message from the boys at Breaking Kayfabe with Bowdren and Barry is for Crystal Kelly and her husband, Rory. Crystal, as a cancer survivor myself, I can tell you that my sister and my mother and my father are all survivors of one type or another of cancer. Girl, you go out there and you kick that fucking cancer's ass. No questions asked. Go out and kick the fucking cancer right in the fucking crotch, okay? You go out there and do what you got to do. I know your husband, Rory, is staying strong. He's supporting you. Rory, by the way, Bear, I don't know if you know this, a guy that has his own band, and I've actually heard a couple clips that they posted on their YouTube page, and I will post a link to that on our group. And I got to say, they're a pretty damn good band.
Well, do you know the name of the band?
I knew you were going to fucking ask me that.
Not on set.
No, it's certainly not on set. They're good. Okay. If it was on set, I would not say they were good. But I believe that maybe the band's name is Rory Kelly. And he's saying it's definitely got a little bit of Black Crowes maybe vibe to it, some Southern rock. But no, good stuff. They got their own YouTube page. We'll post a link to that too. So to Rick's sister and to Rory and the whole family, because it definitely when you're fighting cancer, it becomes a whole family thing. And so we are sending out our love and support to the whole family, and go out there and whoop up on that cancer girl, because I know you can with your family support. So that being said, Barry, I got another quick story that I sort of alluded to. As you know, and the folks that listened to last week's episode, and if you didn't, why didn't you? Barry told the story about Mr. Noodles. Mr. Noodles and the gift that he left Mrs. Rose. I hope all of you can remember that story of the poor deceased chipmunk. So today, Mrs. Bowdren goes to let the dogs out on the back deck. And I'm laying in bed, and about 5 minutes later, I get a phone call up in the bedroom from Mrs. Bowdren on the back deck. And I say, hello. And Barry, tell me if this phone call sounds familiar. You need to get down to the back deck right away and bring a towel or a paper towel with you, because Gunny's got something in his mouth. Oh, of course, right away, Barry. Right away, I've mentioned before, Gunny and Molly have found the chipmunks, and I'm figuring, boy, much like Mr. Noodles, he has got himself a chipmunk, and I'm going to be the one responsible. So now, as I have said before, Barry, we live in relative proximity to Lake Lanier, which is a very large lake here in Georgia, but it's not like, it's down the street. I mean, it's a good mile away, okay? So I go out to the back deck, and there is Gunny. We look through the window, and he's my wife's out there. And he's sort of prancing around. And I see he's got something in his mouth. And I'm like, what the fuck? What does Gunny have in his mouth? I go out there. I got the paper towel, and he comes walking to me. He is as proud as he can be. I've got a gift for Mom. For some reason, she doesn't want it. Barry, in his mouth, a turtle.
What?
He has a turtle in his mouth. Okay, this is not your ginormous turtle, but this is also not a baby. This is the size of a good fist. Okay, or your hand opened up, and so he's got fist. Yeah. Well,
okay, no jokes. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Who doesn't like a good fisting? But
exactly.
So anyway, so he's got this in his mouth, and I'm like, look, I take it out of his mouth, and because he wants to show Dad his what he conquered, what he grabbed. And honestly, I don't think, and probably much like Mr. Noodles, I don't think he picked this up to kill it. Right. I think he picked it up just because it was, hey, this is something that's in the yard. I need to alert Mom and Dad to this. So I go out, and we're thinking the thing's dead, okay, because we see no movement, nothing. And the shell, thankfully, was not cracked. So my wife's like, well, what are you going to do with it? And I go, oh, I'll go put it out in the yard somewhere. So I go over to the side of the house, and I just lay it down in the yard, and I'm figuring if it's dead, nature will take care of it. If he's not dead, well, then this is his opportunity. So about an hour and a half later, Mrs. Bowdren says, where'd you leave the turtle? Because she thought I left it out in the front yard. No, I left it on the side door by where the car is. So I go out there, walk with her. Guess what we saw, Barry?
An alligator.
Nothing. The turtle was gone. So we would like to think that the turtle has made his escape, because the turtle, very quick animal. I don't know if you know that. So So Gunny, bring us the gift of the turtle, which we believe was not in fact dead, but has since escaped into the underbrush. So that is my counter to your Mr. Noodles story. Barry, now before I go into my food story, why don't you hit me with a little Florida man or not?
Oh, bum-ba-da-dum-bum-bum. All right, Jeff, I have 3 stories. And let me say, these are all 3 stories that were in the news over the last 2 weeks. So I'm not digging through the archives to try to fool you. You have been really...
No,
exactly.
You would never do that. I know.
Oh, I try it every single fucking time because... exactly. You have been like at 100%. Every time we do this. So I specifically looked for 3 stories that fit what we normally do. But, look, do they take place in Florida? I'm not saying, but I will say after I read you the stories, Jeff, our first story Let me get a deep breath. And then, Jeff, we're going to do a little something different. So I am going to text you right now, Jeff, as you texted me, a photo. I do not want you to look at the photo until I ask you a specific question and I tell you the story. On September the 30th, that's just a few weeks ago, Vanessa Lee Jones was caught in front of a 7-Eleven convenience store parking lot taking care of herself, a little bit of self-pleasuring.
Oh, my.
Right in front of the store. She was arrested and charged with felony lewd and lascivious exhibition. Prosecutors opted to not pursue any charges. She was released from jail a little less than a month later on October 28th. However, Jeff, this past Saturday, Miss Jones was busted once again for committing the exact same offense, but this time she did not do it in front of a parking lot at a 7-Eleven. She did it right next to a dumpster at a Popeye's fried chicken sandwich.
Wow, well, yeah, of course. They go together.
Yeah, absolutely. That's where I usually relieve myself. So, according to the police report, the 38-year-old Jones showed no sign of being drunk or under the influence of drugs, and there was no evidence of mental health issues. Suffice to say, Jones was arrested again and faces charges this time of exposure of sexual organs. Just to go back to that previous paragraph, she showed no signs of being drunk or under the influence of drugs. She has been arrested previously, possession of methamphetamine.
Wow,
They're saying no evidence of mental health issues. I might say there might be evidence of mental health issues, no matter what you're saying to me, if you're doing this twice. Once I get it, but if you're masturbating in a dumpster at a Popeyes, go home. Jeff, 2 questions on this one. First one, did this take place in Florida or not?
Well, first of all, let me just say that if in the parlance, if you're going to rub one out, what better spot than the dumpster next to a Popeyes? Because, Barry, they do have the new spicy chicken sandwich that is supposed to get rave reviews.
Yes.
And so, maybe she was so excited about the possibility of that chicken sandwich, she just decided,
Jeff, you're right. Jeff, you were 100% correct.
Check.
She was pulling a Costanza, and she was
combining food and sex, much
yes,
like Costanza.
There you go.
Everything Genius. Is a Seinfeld episode. Yes, I actually read the story, and I'm trying to remember where it took place. I'm just going to guess and say Florida.
Yeah, Jeff, you are 100% correct.
Okay. May I look at the photo in question?
Yeah. Look at the photo. Well, no, you can't look at the photo. Don't look. Because I have a question for you. This did take place in Florida. It took place in Newport Richey, Florida, which, if you remember, Jeff, is where the Culvers we ate at was in Newport Richey when we went to that wrestling show about a year ago.
Yeah, I saw a woman in there eyeing me that night. So
she was out by the dumpster. Don't you remember?
Yeah, she was looking through the window. I thought she was rubbing one out, looking at me going, can you come outside? And, of course, I would not break my marital vows.
Yes, it wouldn't. So, Jeff, this is what I was going to ask you. Hot or not?
Oh, now I may look at the picture.
Yes.
The headline that Barry has provided with me says, quote, horny girl rubbed her minge at busy store, which may be the greatest headline of all time.
Yeah.
I can tell you in the photo, she has the proverbial bags under the eyes. Looked like she's been, had a rough day or two. But I will say, perhaps with a bit of makeup, some sprucing up. She is not horrible looking.
And she's not too. So I've actually, I did a little stalking, got on her Facebook page.
Oh well.
Yeah.
Nothing if not always supportive of this program. Barry, doing the solid research. Go ahead.
And she is, there are good photos. And so we should say she's actually extremely pretty. She does possibly show the effects of too much partying. And that's what you just mentioned with the bags. She's got some photos in her Facebook account where she's made up. She's beautiful. She looks fantastic. She obviously is going down a wrong path with this public masturbation at 7-Eleven.
I'll say nothing of the meth.
And the meth, which is, she's 38 years old, but all we can do is hope for the best. I do believe, and I should say too, Jeff, I reached out to try to get her to come on and talk about this. And
that would have been a gift.
That would have been a gift. She's ignored all requests thus far.
What?
But hopefully it'll work out. But Our second story, Jeff, you are batting. You're again keeping your record intact. A former ballerina has been arrested for allegedly gunning down her husband inside a home amid a custody battle over their daughter. Ashley Benenfield, the founder of the American National Ballet, is facing one count of second-degree murder in the slaying of Douglas Benefield, according to a press release from the local sheriff's office. Miss Benefield had recently requested an injunction against her husband claiming abuse, only to be rejected by the judge, who openly advised that she did not find Ashley's story to possess a scintilla of truth. So you've got a ballerina, and I believe she's about 29, 30 years old. The founder of the American National Ballet has killed her husband, Jeff. Two questions with this once again. Did this take place in Florida? And then after that, is she hot or not? Because I am going to text you the photo right now.
Will the headline top the last headline?
I don't think so. I don't think there's actually a headline on that one either.
Okay. Well, initially I was going to say not Florida because, not a lot of big ballet companies in the state of Florida. But then I started thinking maybe she's retired. Maybe she doesn't do it anymore. Maybe she moved. I'm going to say I'll take a home run swing because I have no idea and say Florida just for the hell of it.
It's unbelievable, your record. Yes, Manatee County, which is also it's not so far. Bradenton.
These places are close to where you want to live, I want to mention, Barry.
These places are right in the heart of where I want to live, actually. So it's interesting. But here's the crazy part about this story. This ballet company was in South Carolina.
What?
So your powers of deductive reasoning, somehow it's amazing because the fucking ballet was in South Carolina, and she kills her husband in Florida. So great job. Now, Jeff, without looking at the photo, was she hot or not?
Well, I will admit, before you've done that, I actually looked at the photo before.
Okay.
Not realized. So I have a question for you to counteract that. Do you, if you have to take an either or, do you go with the masturbating meth head or the killer ballerina? Which one are you going to take?
And that's a tough one right there. So let's break.
The ballerina is not bad, I got to say.
She's super pretty. And this is her mugshot. Imagine her the ballerina is absolutely beautiful. But if you've got somebody that's willing to rub it out in front of a dumpster at Popeyes, I want to party with you, cowboy. You know what I mean?
She's free to be you and me.
Yeah, whatever I'm bringing, she's fine with that. Whatever.
I think what we'll do is on the day this podcast drops, Barry, I think we will post these two articles. And I don't know if you've got a masturbating ballerina in the third story, but if you do. But I'm interested to see which one of the, because, okay, like Barry said, the meth head is ready to go. Jumpstart it. Let's go right now, cowboy.
Yep.
Or you've got the chance to get it. How old was she? 20-something?
The ballerina is actually 28.
28 years old, and she has the body of a ballerina.
And she's a murderer, but don't worry about that.
You're not going to hold that against her,
Yeah.
And so, here you got to juggle, your yin, your yang. Which one are you going to go for? We're going to post this on Breaking Kayfabe with Bowdren Barry. Go ahead, Barry. Hit me with the third story.
Third story, and this, Jeff, just coming through over the last 2 days. Police in this state said an emu was spotted wandering loose.
I hate when that happens.
Emu. I've been waiting to do that.
Doug.
Exactly. Spotted wandering loose through a residential neighborhood and was lassoed with the help of an animal services officer. The local police department said animal services officer Frankie Ayers and community service officer Amy Martin responded to the report of a large flightless bird running loose in the neighborhood. This was called in by several residents as the emu was sitting in the front yard of a residence. Lieutenant Kurt Schleubhuber said. Schleubhuber.
I went to high school with him, I think.
Yeah, exactly. No fucking idea what that last name is. Ayers and Martin, who both had animal wrangling experience from growing up on farms, were able to lasso the flightless Australian bird and take it to the sheriff's office animal shelter, where it was reunited happily with its owner. Jeff, Florida or not?
Okay, I'm going to make my comments after I do the initial guess.
I don't have a hot or not on this one either.
Well, no. What I was going to ask you was, you said there were two wranglers, one of whom was a woman, correct?
Yes, correct.
Do we have a picture of her so we can make it a F, marry, or kill on the stories? If you did, that'd be very timely.
I'm going to try to find this. All right.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm going to say not Florida, strictly because you've done 2 Florida stories already, and I don't think you're going to hit me with a trilogy of Florida stories.
Yeah, you're again, Jeff. You go play the lottery when we
boom
recording. Pleasanton,
Mrs. Bowdren,
California. Sweet
where
Lou, Pleasanton, California. Any idea?
Join us.
Yes, Pleasanton, California. That would be in Contra Costa County, otherwise known as east of San Francisco.
There we go.
All right.
Lou always providing the topical geographic information. So, okay, so 3 for 3. I'm my statistics.
It's amazing, Jeff. It's absolutely amazing. Yeah.
So, Barry, right now, why don't we go to our interview with the Olympic strongman himself? Folks, strap yourself in. This is going to be a bumpy ride. It's time to talk to Ken Patera. Barry, could you be any more excited? We have a man that is not just an Olympian, Barry, not just a former intercontinental champion, not just a former national champion, not just a former Missouri champion. Barry, we have a gold medalist from the Pan Am Games with us today. I am talking the fucking man, Ken Patera. Ken, thanks for joining us here on Breaking Kayfabe with Bowdren Barry.
Well, WTF to you.
Please don't feel like you need to hold back, Ken. That would be. So
I won't.
Ken is joined with us today by his daughter's Rottweiler, who is in heat.
That's right. And I'll tell you, I think that she thinks she grew a dick because she's been humping my right arm and my left leg for 3 days now.
Oh.
And so my daughter's on vacation down in Florida until tomorrow. And I told her that, and of course she's with a bunch of girlfriends down there. She says, God, can you believe it? My dad thinks my dog grew a dick because she's humping his left leg and right arm.
She is really looking for some companionship, and aren't we all? But anyway.
Yes,
so,
yes.
Ken, I wanted to start off. First thing I wanted to ask you, before we start getting full into your pro wrestling career, tell us what the experience was like being an Olympian in 1972. That must be an incredible memory for you.
Well, that's the 1972 Olympics in Munich, Germany will always be remembered as the Olympics that Yasser Arafat and his team of terrorists came over the back fence into the Israeli compound and shot up all the Jews. And of course, that made it still makes international news. When the Jews were getting shot up in their compound, it was directly across the condo structure that we were staying in. We were on about the 7th floor, and we had a bird's eye view right on to the 2 balconies where the terrorists were walking around with ski masks and carrying their automatic weapons. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, here comes the helicopters landing in this big circular area for entertaining and stuff. But I probably was 500 feet, maybe 600 feet away. But it was like we were right on top of them because we were 7 stories up and they were basically ground level.
So how scary was that for you, though, to be over there where people were being assassinated directly in front of you? And you were a young man at that stage.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, the guy that they got out of the Olympic Village ASAP was Mark Spitz.
Right.
Mark Spitz, a swimmer. Yeah,
oh, sure. 7 gold medals.
Right. He won 7 gold medals in the Olympics. So anyway, the terrorists, they were threatening to kill him too. So they hustled him out of the village, which, protected the rest of us too. Yeah, they took him to an undisclosed location, and
I bet. Parts unknown they took him to.
That's it.
There you go. Parts unknown. That sounds good. We'll go with that. Parts unknown. So anyway, I keep looking at this damn dog waiting for it to attack me. But but anyway, the security was phenomenal.
If you're just tuning in right now, we have the legendary Ken Patera, Olympian, multi-title holder, guy who was a main event for years all across the country. He comes to us courtesy of Nick Massey with Captain's Corner, and Ken has two big events coming up. It is Captain's Corner with Ken Patera Part 2, Saturday, November 21st at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And this is kind of a cool concept, and you notice that a lot of people are doing it based off of the pandemic. Nick has a setup, and he'll have Ken there with him, and they live stream on Facebook for like 2 or 3 hours. People will message them, and Ken can actually sell autographs. He can do autograph pictures, and he can actually inscribe them to people, because people will say, hey, my name is Dave. Can I get a photo? And they actually do it right on screen for you. But Jeff, you are going to love this. Ken is going to be auctioning two big things. And I got to tell you, I think I'm going to be around for this. I'm going to have to see it. He is auctioning not only his singlets from his wrestling career, he's auctioning off an authentic New Japan Pro Wrestling briefcase that was given to him by Antonio Inoki in 1980. Jeff, don't even think about it. I've got my eye on it. I am lining up to bid on this because I think that is super fucking cool. But Ken is doing a shot the next day. This will be an in-person shot. He will be at the Wrestling Universe in Flushing, Queens, New York between 1 and 3 p.m. That's on Sunday, November 22nd at the Wrestling Universe. Ken will be there. He'll be taking photos. He'll be signing autographs. And he may even have a good story or two as well, if I'm right.
Well, I have more than a few good stories.
He may talk about his daughter's dog. Who knows?
Hey, you never know. I might bring that Rottweiler with me and just let her roam around and hump everybody's leg.
I'm coming. That's it.
All those people in Flushing will be going, this dog has a dick. So,
yeah,
it's
the goofiest dog you'd ever want to see. I never seen a female dog come into heat and then start acting like a male dog. I've never seen it or heard of it.
That's crazy. Moving on from your daughter's dog to your wrestling career, I have to ask you a question. Getting past all your training with Vern and all that kind of stuff, tell us, please, about the times, because I happen to be listening to another show recently, and Ric Flair was talking about you and he being roommates. You got to tell us a story about rooming with Ric Flair. Good Lord.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. I moved back to Minneapolis from Portland, Oregon, because my brother, Jack Patera, he was defensive line coach for the Minnesota Vikings at the time.
Absolutely.
And this
future head coach of the Seahawks, too.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And then he wound up being the first head coach of the Seahawks. Oh, God, what year was that? 76. You have a better memory than I do. You must have been looking up.
No,
yeah.
I've been a Vikings fan for 50 years, Ken. So I knew about you.
Oh, you have?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Okay, I got you. So anyway, he passed away 2 years ago. Yeah, he had pancreatic cancer. I'll tell you before I get back to Rick. My brother Jack, he calls me. He says, Ken, I was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. I said, oh, shit, really? He said, yeah, really. He said, the doctor gave me 3 to 4 months to live. I said, 3 or 4 months? I said, that's not too bad because I have some friends that didn't last 2 months with that pancreatic cancer. Yeah, he says it's the shits. He said, it spreads real fast. I talk to my brother 2-3 times a month. So as time went on, 6 months goes by, and I said, how's your cancer? And he says, well, I still have it, but I feel pretty damn good. I think the doctor's fucked up. I said, I'm going to have a talk with him. My brother, he talks like I do, fuck this, fuck that. So, what do you expect an NFL head coach to do? So anyway, he after about 7 or 8 months, he's feeling real weak, and he's down to about 180 pounds. His bones weigh 180 pounds, for Christ's sakes. I said, Jesus Christ, Jack, I'd come out to see you, but I don't know if you have enough energy. He said, no, don't. He said, you come out here enough, don't worry about coming out here. And after 9 months, he passed away, and his youngest daughter calls me and says, Ken, your brother passed away in the middle of the night last night. And he went peacefully and had no pain, so he's at rest now. And I said, well, thanks for calling. I haven't talked to that kid in 40 years. And he really had a sweetheart family. I mean, and so I miss him a little bit,
No, I'm sure.
as expected. I miss him a lot.
Yeah.
He's my favorite brother. There's 5 of us. There's a couple of my brothers I don't give a shit about at all, Yeah. But anyway.
No, I know your brother. He was the defensive line coach for the Vikings during, I believe, their first 2 or 3 Super Bowl appearances.
Yes, first 3. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
So,
yeah.
But,
He told me all those guys, Marshall, Eller, Page, Larson, those guys would come to camp. And, during the summer, he said none of those guys could get on the football field without a handful of bennies. And people that don't know what bennies are, that's Benzedrine.
You're breaking kayfabe on the NFL now.
Oh, yeah, as if they don't still do it. Some of those guys.
You were going to tell us a story about Ruben with Flair.
Yeah, okay. Let me, you chew Copenhagen?
No, go aahead, please. I don't, but
I do.
Feel free.
What, do you expect that I was going to ask your permission? Who in the fuck do you think I am?
Our producer has been known to dip, I think.
Oh, yeah. Right. Oh, God. Anyway, I moved back here. So I asked my brother Jack if I could stay with him for a week or 2 until I get settled in back there. And he says, yeah, absolutely. He says, come on back. And so I drive back on Christmas Day, 1981 or 1971. And I'd been on the road for 28 hours. And I get to my brother's house, and I crash for 2 days. Anyway, I asked after about a week or so, I asked my brother, are there any nightclubs around here? Oh, yeah, just go over here to Excelsior Boulevard. There's all kinds of bars over there. So I drove over there, and it didn't matter which one, but the first bar I went into was it was called George's in the Park. And I walk in the Red Dog Saloon. That was a saloon in the back of this big dinner theater. And who's sitting there on a stool next to the cigarette machine? Ric Flair. Now, Rick was 21 years old at the time. I didn't know who he was, of course. And he keeps looking at me, and I'm asking him a few questions, and, I smoked cigarettes back in those days. So I got 50 cents out, put 2 quarters in the machine, got my cigarettes. And Rick looks at me. He says, are you Ken Patera by any chance? I said, yeah. What the hell are you doing here? I said, I'll never forget. I says, well, everybody has to be someplace, and I'm here. He said, geez, I just saw you on TV 2 weeks ago in Wild World of Sports. I said, yeah, that'd be possible. And he said, oh, shit. So anyway, after that, we became good friends. And I went in there about twice a week, I guess. And then, besides lifting weights and all that, I wanted to do something, some kind of employment. And so the owner of George's in the Park, the guy's name is George Schomburg. You could write a book about that place. Schomburg says, well, what days do you want to work? I said, Monday and Friday. Perfect. So they put me there. He says, how much you want to make? I said, well, how much you pay your top guys? He said, $5 an hour. I says, well, I'd like to have at least 8. He said, no problem. You got it. So $8 an hour back in those days for bouncing was unbelievable money. I got back to my brother's house. How was it? I told him I met this young guy in there, pretty decent guy. Never knew that we'd become friends, you know. And he says, don't you think you ought to go have your meeting with Vern Gagne tomorrow? I said, yeah, I was planning on it. And so he gives me one of his cars. I drive down to the Dykeman Hotel, which was downtown Minneapolis. And Vern told me, he gave me directions on how to get there. So I go down there and I'm meeting Vern Gagne and Wally Carbo. And while I'm talking to him, there's all these wrestlers coming in and out of the office. Eduardo Carpentier was the first one to come in. I remember that. And then the Crusher came in. And then Mad Dog Vachon and his brother Paul, they came in. And I think Rene Goulet. And Nick Bockwinkel. So I couldn't believe all these wrestlers. I didn't know who they were. I knew who Mad Dog Vachon was because he had wrestled out in Portland. He did a big program out there for about 2-3 months with Tough Tony Bourne. So what was the question? How I met Rick?
No, it was about your time rooming with Rick in Mid-Atlantic.
Oh no, we didn't room together in Mid-Atlantic. He was married to Leslie.
Oh, okay.
I roomed with Rick about 2 months after I got back to Minneapolis.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I thought he was referring to Mid-Atlantic, but apparently he meant Minnesota. Okay.
Yeah, Minnesota. So Rick, he says, God, I can't stand living with my parents anymore. Have you got an apartment yet? I said, no. I said, I'm living with this Mel Hennessy over in North Minneapolis. He said, well, you want to get an apartment? Let's get an apartment together. I said, yeah, okay. So we look around. We couldn't find a decent apartment. So we wound up renting a house, a 2-story house right on the corner. And that turned out to be the original Animal House. It was unbelievable. So Rick and I are working the door. We're bouncing out there at George's in the Park, and we're living in the original Animal House. And this is a big house. It's a beautiful house. It was really nice. I think we paid $160 a month for it, and that included utilities and everything. So we're living there, and I'm selling water beds. I met an old friend of mine out in California. I was out there for something. And he says, Ken, you want to sell water beds back there in the Midwest for me? I said, yeah. So he gave me a game plan and everything. And he shipped back about 50 water beds in these cardboard boxes and stuff. I had them all stacked up in a closet in my bedroom. I sold about 20 water beds to some of the players on the Vikings. And I sold 2 water beds to Vern Gagne. He said, you're going to install them, aren't you? I said, well, I'll show you how to install them. Well, no, you got to install them. I said, okay. So I built the frames and everything and filled them up with water and bought him a nice mattress pad and everything. And he loved it. And I think his 2 daughters used the second bed that I sold them. But anyway, Rick and I I was training for the 71 Pan Am Games at that time and the national championships and whatnot. And so, I'm trying to get some sleep. And remember, we only work like Monday and Friday. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday were my training days. Well, sometimes like 10, 11 o'clock at night, we'd have 30 people in the fucking house. And Rick would have the music turned up full blast. And now we're right in the middle of a neighborhood. Luckily, we had a corner house. And so we didn't get any complaints. I can't believe that we never got a complaint. Everybody that left there, 3, 4, 5 in the morning, they were all drunk and, driving on people's lawns and, just acting like assholes. But we had more women, or they were, girls, back then because we were young. But, it was an unbelievable time at that animal house. Rick was telling me on the phone a couple of days ago that he's going to come up here in April. When his parents passed away, they wanted Rick to scatter their ashes over in a western suburb, Maplewood, I think it was. And I said, well, shit, when you come up to do that, I said, make sure you get a hold of me. I'd like to do that. I really enjoyed his parents, Kay and Dick. And his father was a doctor, and his mother was a playwright. So they were very educated people. And I don't know why they liked me, but they did.
And, no accounting for taste, huh?
There you go.
Yeah, right. But the first time Rick took me over to his parents' house, well, he was still living there. So we go downstairs. He had the whole downstairs beautifully laid out. And he had a stack of wrestling magazines that had to be close to 4 feet high. And he just loved professional wrestling. He knew every goddamn wrestler that ever lived. So when he got into wrestling, I says, Rick, you were born to be a pro wrestler. I said, there's no doubt about it. So he bugged me for 2 years until I started wrestling. And I told him, I said, I'll get you into the camp. But I said, the rest will be up to you. I said, it's going to be hard. And he said, no, I'll be in shape. I said, you better be. And he told me that he knew Greg Gagne, Vern's son, and Jimmy Brunzell. And they wound up being a tag team, the High Flyers. Anyway, Rick and I would go to the gym, work out together all the time, then we'd go to the bar, of course, you always have to have a few beers after you lift for 2-3 hours. And I think we spent more time in the bar than we did in the gym. But I like drinking beer, I quit drinking about 9 months ago. Back in January, I quit drinking. I don't know why. I'm a miserable bastard now. I've always been a miserable bastard, but I'm really a miserable bastard now because I don't drink anymore. What the fuck? What should I do? Should I start drinking again? Yeah. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, Ken, I have a question for you too, and I know we've only got you for a limited time, but so when you were a heel, which would be in the late 70s going into the 80s, you were kind of that cool heel. You were the heel, that was accepted, that the babyface fans also liked because you were cool, and you also had a really popular fan club that was run by a young lady out of Queens, Georgianne Macropolis. Yeah, and she passed away a few years ago, but she used to put out what I thought was one of the better newsletters in those days, and I still have my copies of that. Georgianne was a fantastic person, never got the credit that she deserved. Right. So give me some memories of Georgianne.
Well, her partner in crime in that was Eleanor Finley.
That's right.
And Eleanor wound up marrying Tommy, the guy that owned the Midtown gym. What was his last name? Finicello, I think. But Arnold Schwarzenegger, Franco Columbo, what was his name? The one that played the Hulk.
Frigno.
Yeah, Frigno. All those guys trained there. Not all the time, but when they were in town. None of them lived in New York, of course, but anybody that was anybody in bodybuilding or in the movies that liked to work out, they all trained at Tommy's place. And this thing was in the basement. It was underneath the Ramada Inn, and that's where we stayed, was at the Ramada Inn at the time. So I got to know a lot of people. Of course, I knew Ferrigno and I knew Schwarzenegger back in the 70s. I met him out there at Muscle Beach in Santa Monica, California, back in, what was it, 79, 80? Right in that area. And Schwarzenegger, his English wasn't real good. Not that it's very good now, but,
So you talked about all the guys there, Columbo, Ferrigno, Schwarzenegger, Tattoo, more particularly in the wrestling business. I mean, I know you competed in that World's Strongest Man competition on CBS and stuff, but in the business, certainly you had to be like the strongest guy at the time that you were in the business. Who is somebody that you would say maybe came close to you as far as guys that you were really impressed with how strong that they were?
Well, there was guys, that could bench press more than me, but none of them could, lift as much as I could. I did the Olympic lifting. I clean and press 550 pounds. And, most of those guys couldn't even roll that much, let alone pick it up off the floor.
Mm-hmm.
So I was cleaning it, getting to my shoulders and then pressing it overhead, and that amazed them all. Nobody could believe anybody could do that. Well, I was the only one that could do that. So that made it pretty easy, But guys that were, Bruno, Bruno bench like 580, I think. Tony Atlas, I saw Tony bench press 550 for reps. Dino Bravo, I saw Dino bench press close to 600. I never practiced bench pressing because it wasn't in the Olympics. The press that was in the Olympics was overhead press. But I bench pressed 625 pounds. I think the only two guys that have done more than that would be Ted Arcidi and Bill Kazmaier.
Sure.
Well, I know Arcidi did more than I did because he did 700. I don't think bench pressing was Kazmaier's strength. He was more for deadlift and squat, but he had a good bench press too. And let's see, who else? Well, that'd be about it.
Okay.
I don't remember any of the newer guys coming up that could even compete. Well, none of them could compete with what I did, in the Olympics. But there's a lot of strong guys come through the wrestling group, There's a lot of guys that look like they can lift the building, but they really can't. They're more of the bodybuilding type, but they're strong, and they're strong in the bench press and maybe one or two other lifts. They do the curls and the bench press to pump up their arms and their chest. I know a lot of them got their lower body sued their upper body for non-support. Yeah, that's true.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. We want to focus a little bit on your wrestling, too. So you were a guy that was on top. You were on top in New York, which arguably that's the biggest platform for professional wrestling in the 70s and the early 80s. You were on top in the AWA. You were main eventing. You were AWA tag team champion for a long time. And in the NWA, you were a big deal, whether it was Mid-Atlantic, Toronto, even Memphis you were at, but you were also the Missouri champion. And the Missouri champion, at least at, the fans' eyes, this was viewed as a title that was literally a stepping stone to the world title. So having said all that, working in the AWA, the NWA, the WWF, where do you think you fit in best as a professional wrestler?
Well, I enjoyed them all. I really did. A friend of mine from New York reminded me this about 6 months ago. He says, Kenny, you're the only one to ever hold the Intercontinental Championship and the Missouri Championship at one time.
Yep.
I said, you're kidding. He said, no, you're the only one. Nobody before or since has ever done that. I says, wow, I didn't know that. Well, I forgot about it, you know.
When we were having, as I mentioned before we started recording, I had dinner with some friends in South Florida with Ken. And we brought that up at the dinner. We said, Ken, you held this the Intercontinental Championship and the Missouri title. It's an NWA belt and a WWF belt at the same time. How did that come about? And you looked at us straight in the eye and you went, because I was good.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah. Like people ask me now, you know, for the past several years, I get a kick out of this. They ask me about certain matches with certain people and this and that. I says, well, I used to be famous, you know. And they said, what? I said, I used to be famous, you know. And they says, yeah. I said, I still am famous, for Christ's sakes. And they get, you know, a kick out of that. But I like saying that. I used to be famous, you know.
Ken, I just recalled that you celebrated a birthday last week. So, of course, on behalf of Barry and Lou and myself, we want to wish you a happy birthday. Hope it was a good one for you.
Well, thank you, sir. Last Friday.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I got a question. Talking about all the different territories you worked in and all that, you had the opportunity to work with some really great guys in your corner. I'm talking about Ernie Roth, the Grand Wizard, Bobby Heenan, Adnan Al-Kaisi. Who did you have the most fun working in your corner?
The guy that you didn't mention.
Oh, I forgot somebody. Who did I forget?
Lou Albano.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
The captain. Oh, was he a wild man? Jesus. I'll tell you a funny story.
Flair or Albano? Who
Huh?
was wilder? Flair or Albano? Who was more of a wild man?
Oh, Rick. Rick was head and shoulders above everybody. He was in a class by himself. If I told you Ric Flair stories every day, it'd take me 2 months, because I would get, once I told you one, I'd remember another one and another one and another one, and it would just keep escalating. Yeah, Rick was definitely in his own
class.
His own class. Yeah, there was nobody else close.
So you're going to say something about Albano?
Oh yeah, Lou. I says, Lou, you like drinking this vodka? I says, this is what I'm going to do for you. I was living in Charlotte at the time. I said, I'm going to go home next weekend for a couple of days. A friend of mine makes his own moonshine. I'll bring you some moonshine. Oh, God, really? I said, yeah, real authentic Southern moonshine. Oh, God, I can hardly wait. So anyway, I get back with this moonshine, and we're having TV that day. It was a Wednesday down there, the old auditorium in Philadelphia. So anyway, I get back. I got this moonshine in my wrestling bag. First thing I see Lou, Kenny, did you get that moonshine? And I said, I sure did. It's right here.
He was focused, huh?
Oh, God, was he focused. And so I pulled this jar. It was in a mason jar. That's what they use, mason jars. You know, they don't put it in bottles and stuff. So I pulled this mason jar out of my bag, and one quart, and I gave it to him. He said, how much did this cost, Kenny? I said, well, my buddy gave it to me for $5. So I gave him a 10 spot. Oh, great. I'll pay you. I said, no, I don't want any money. So anyway, he starts sipping on it about noon. Now we're doing interviews all day long, and then we do the wrestling matches. So we did 3 wrestling shows at a time back in those days. It was during the summertime, and Lou, about 6:30 or 7 o'clock, he had drank that whole fucking bottle of moonshine. That's 150 proof shit.
Wow. He was not quite as focused later in the day. Is that what you're saying?
Oh, fuck. You could dip a potato chip in that shit, then, light it on fire, burn like a candle.
Wow.
So anyway, he drank that, and now he's hot and sweaty. He wants to take a shower. It's like we're getting ready to go on. And he's just drunk, and he's calling old man McMahon, that motherfucking Irish man. I'll tell him where to go, And because Vince's dad ran it back in those days.
Sure.
Vince was just announcer back in those days. So anyway, Lou gets undressed, bare ass naked. He's walking to the shower, and it's during the summertime, and the concrete floor sweated, it was real slippery. And man, his feet went up in the air, and he came down right on his fucking head. Sounded like a watermelon hitting that concrete floor. And I said, oh God, I was just like 10 feet away. And I said, Lou. So I go over there, and he fucking jumps up. Yeah, I thought he killed himself or knocked himself out. He jumps up like nothing happened. He said, where's that fucking shower at? He got disorientated and turned around. So I had to turn him back around and headed for the shower. So I walked him into the shower, make sure that he didn't fall down. Oh, man, was he fucked up. So he gets all cleaned up, comes back, and he starts getting dressed while the old man comes in and sees the condition Lou's in. He said, Lou, you're not doing any promos. Kenny, you're going to go out on your own on these. Just do them by Lou's in no condition to be talking. Oh, Christ. Lou went crazy. What are you talking about, you Irish motherfucker? I can do nothing wrong with me, blah, blah, blah. I said, Lou, he's right. I said, you can't even tell. Just everything he was saying was just a mumble. And I said, you're in no shape. I said, I can't believe it. I said, did you drink that whole bottle? Of course I did. I said, oh, my God. And so anyway, yeah, he was fucked up the rest of the night and until about 2 or 3 o'clock the next afternoon.
Wow.
Oh, yeah, he was completely trashed. 150 proof, a quart of it. That killed the average person.
Oh, wow. So, well, listen, I know your time is getting short. I have 2 final questions for you. A friend of mine wanted me to ask you, you left Georgia in 81. Do you remember what was the reason that you left Georgia? Like right at the, you were main eventing.
Yeah, I was doing a program with Tommy Rich. And when I got down there, I was in the WWF the whole year of 1980. So the old man, Vince, asked me if I could go down to Georgia and help Jim Barnett out, that his territory was in the toilet. And, if I go down there, he says, I know you're going to figure something out where you can get that territory back on its feet. So I get down there, and Tommy Rich was the baby face, the head baby face. I said, Tommy, for us to get this territory back on, we're going to have to go out there and bust our ass. We started going to these shows, and it was like 250, 300 people. And, there was just no money. I said, I didn't come down here to fucking make $500 a week. And he says, well, yeah, that's about what we're going to be making. And hell, we had some weeks $300-400 a week. Well, after about a month and a half, we got it up to, like 800, 900, 1,000, then up to 1,200. And we had some weeks $1,500, $1,600 weeks. And after 4 months, they bring George Scott in to be the booker. Well, I bought George Scott's first house down in Charlotte. He had a custom-built home, and he sold it to me and my wife after him and his family lived in it for about 2 years. So I bought his house. It was a gorgeous house. So anyway, George comes in there. Well, he has his own ideas and stuff, and I wasn't the booker. I was just, working and helping as much as I could. And I had the Georgia Championship belt. So he wants me to drop it to Tommy, and then for Tommy to drop it to Bill Eadie. And, there was no problem with that, but it wasn't time yet. And Bill Eadie had just come in from Japan. That was his first night in the territory. We were at the Omni Arena down there in Atlanta, you know, a big place. So I told George, I said, George, you really think this is the right time to be doing this? He said, oh, yeah. And I said, George, I think you're wrong. And I said, Tommy, come here. So we go in the locker room, and there's Tommy, myself, and George Scott. So I told Tommy, I said, what did I tell you 2-3 weeks ago when we found out that George Scott was going to come in to be the booker? Well, you told me this was going to happen. And I said, I told you it was going to happen within 2 weeks. Here's the first fucking day. Yeah. So I said, nah, fuck it. I says, Tommy, good working with you. The Georgia Championship belt was in my bag. I went over, took it out of the bag, gave it to Tommy. I walked out the back door. And I didn't know where I was going to go or what I was going to do. I knew that I wasn't going to stay there and work for George Scott. And so I walked out. I called Sam Mushnick over in St. Louis. I called Paul Bosch down in Houston. I called Bill Watts over in Oklahoma territory. I called Jack Tunney up there in Toronto. I called a couple other people, you know, and told them that I was free and I wanted to do just work as an independent. Oh, shit, they all jumped all over me. Hey, Kim, let's see, we can book you here. I had so many fucking bookings, I couldn't fill them out all. So anyway, I went from making shit down there in Georgia to averaging over $2,000 a week, plus all expenses paid. You know, they pay for my airfare, my rent-a-car, my meals, my hotel, everything. So it worked out good. And I did that for about 3 or 4 months. And anyway, in between then, I was in St. Louis. I just done some TV for Sam Mushnick. And Vern Gagne was down there. And Vern was trying to buy into the territory at the time. I didn't know that. I found that out later. Anyway, I bumped into Vern in the lobby of the hotel. Vern asked me what I was doing, that he heard that I quit working in Georgia. I said, yeah, I couldn't take it. And he says, well, you want to come to work for me? I said, I don't think you pay me enough. And he, well, what's enough? I says, well, I'm averaging over $2,000 a week now, and I want to keep making at least that, if preferably more. And he says, well, I don't know if you're worth that much. Well, I said, if you don't think I'm worth that much, don't pay me and I'll leave. You know? And so anyway, I got back up here to Minneapolis, Minnesota, and I think I was here for 2.5 years. And we were box office. Jerry Blackwell and I tagged up, and we had a hell of a tag team going. We worked with everybody, you know, the Crusher and Baron von Raschke and the High Criers. And, yeah, Ricky Martel was up here. We had a hell of a crew. Yeah.
Yeah, you absolutely did. Well, I know that Jeff has a final question, but before Jeff gets to that, let's do another plug for the 2 appearances you have coming up. The first is going to be a virtual appearance, and we will be posting a link in the Breaking Kayfabe with Bowdren Barry Facebook group. Ken is doing a joint appearance with Nick Massey of Captain's Corner. It is Ken Patera Part 2, The Return, Saturday, November 21st at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Ken will be virtually signing magazines, photos, programs, sports cards, and more. But the big items that he is going to be auctioning off that night, and Jeff, I've already told you, I will be in front of my computer because I am interested. Not only are these going to be ring-worn singlets that Ken wore throughout his career, he has got a New Japan Pro Wrestling briefcase that was given to him by Antonio Inoki in 1980. That is 40 years ago. I will be there. I am definitely going to bid on this. The next day, there is a live appearance. So if you've ever wanted to meet Ken, Ken, I actually met you at an autograph signing, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years ago. You were a lot of fun, just like you are on with us right now in person. You are a lot of fun. This will be Sunday, November 22nd at the Wrestling Universe in Flushing, Queens between 1 and 3 p.m. Ken will be signing, taking photos. I know that I can't be there for that one, but if I was Ken, I want to say I would buy you a beer, but you don't drink anymore, so I don't know what I would do.
I drink, but I don't drink every day and every week like I used to. I drink about once a month. Yeah,
all right.
But I still drink. I'm a social drinker now. a legitimate. I don't sit down and kill a bottle of whiskey every night like I used to.
A man's got to know his limitations, So
yeah, exactly. Well, it took me 58 years to figure that out. I'm 77 now, so I was maybe 20 when I really got on a roll.
Okay, well, let me first of all, let me tell you how much fun we've had interviewing you, and we really appreciate your time and your efforts with us today. I'm going to leave you with one last question, and I hope the listeners will get a kick out of it. Since you work for both of them, compare and contrast working for Vince Sr. and Vince Jr.
Oh, that's pretty easy. Vince Sr. was a real diplomat. His office was in his shirt pocket. And by that, I mean he had notes and stuff that he'd take and he'd just put them in his shirt pocket. He always wore a nice dress shirt and either a suit jacket or a sport coat. He was a real nifty dresser, I'll tell you. The guy never had a hair out of place. But anyway, the manners that he had, he treated everybody with respect and dignity and everything. And then the kid, I don't know what happened to the fucking kid, but originally we were pretty close friends there for about 3-4 years. And shit, we used to travel up and down the Eastern Seaboard together. He had this big blue, I think it was a Lincoln. We'd drive from like New York all the way to Bangor, Maine. I mean, that was a haul. But I would say the old man was more of a legitimate businessman, where Vince Jr. was more of a rogue businessman. He did everything his own way. And he knew what he wanted. He knew that he wanted to change the face of wrestling. And he did it. He had a plan in his head. He worked it out. He had some pitfalls here and there, but after it was all said and done, he succeeded, and everybody else that tried failed because he was the competition.
Sure. Well, listen, once again, Ken Patera, we cannot thank you enough. And I have to tell you, I was as I was looking at my notes, because as I told you, I'm a lifelong Vikings fan. I was going to ask you about your brother Jack. That was what you discussed about your brother, very personal topic, of course, the loss of your brother. As a Vikings fan and as somebody who's admired your brother when he was coaching for the Vikings and the Seahawks, I appreciate you telling us that story. So we want to thank Ken again for joining us here on Breaking Kayfabe with Bowdren Barry. We will post a link to his appearance with Nick Massey, both virtually and in person. Ken, once again, thanks a lot for joining us, man.
Okay. Nice talking to you guys. Have fun. Okay. We'll do it again someday.
Good luck with the dog.
That fucking dog's sleeping on my foot now. My foot's going to sleep. Swear to God.
Have a good weekend.
Okay, thanks. Bye-bye. Okay.
Wow, Barry, how much fun was it talking to Ken Patera?
You know what's cool about this too? You bring up that he was an Olympian. We've had 2 Olympians on the show, and we're kind of that little engine that could, in a sense, we've often referred to ourselves.
I think I can.
Exactly. We refer to ourselves as the bastard children of the Arcadian Vanguard network, but that is our second fucking Olympian that we've had on the show. That's a really interesting interview, and Ken is such a no filter, which from our standpoint, that's what you look for if you're going to interview somebody who doesn't really give a shit and says whatever they want to say. But really interesting stuff. I kind of do wish I could get up to that autograph signing and be able to say hi to Nick. I think our friend Benji may even be going. I'm not sure. I know Benji has spoken about it, but yeah, I don't think I want to go to Queens this time of year,
Yeah, no, and I
or
will
any
tell
time
you,
of year, actually.
you know,
But yeah.
as I mentioned, I was at a dinner with Ken down in South Florida. Matter of fact, it was the last dinner that I attended before the infamous falling out that I've discussed here on more than one occasion. But Ken was absolutely effing hilarious. I mean, just like you said, no filter. He will say things. Here's a funny comparison, Barry. Much like Porky's that we reviewed last week, there are things that Ken will say that are not exactly what you would call politically correct. Can I truthfully say that, Barry?
Oh yeah. Well, and you're being extremely gracious when you say that.
Yes.
And look, there's a different mindset there. As Ken said, he's 77 years old. He doesn't really give a shit. And I don't know what's in his head, and I don't want to sit here and presume, but yeah, he's not politically correct. And here's the thing: he's not going to apologize for not being politically correct. Exactly.
No, certainly not. So, but let's now go to our match of the week, as we discussed at the beginning of the show. A little bit different in that what we're watching. First of all, the match is joined in progress. It only joined in progress like a minute or two in. But you have Vince McMahon Jr. as the announcer, along with Ernie Roth, the Grand Wizard himself, Abdullah Farouk, to some out in the Midwest, and Ken Patera. And this is Ken Patera winning the Intercontinental Championship from the great and legendary Pat Patterson. This is April 21st, 1980. Barry, you've had a chance to watch this. Tell the folks what you thought.
Yeah, and I wish that we would have asked him about the Grand Wizard. He did, Ken did talk about Captain Lou Albano, which was his manager on his second run, but his initial run did have the Grand Wizard. And I think the Grand Wizard, he was, in my opinion, he was maybe the best of the managers from a promo standpoint. Albano was, maybe more grab you by the throat or the lapels and shake you up a little bit. But, Ernie Roth really had the gift of gab, and he was highly intelligent, which you could hear when he speaks. I really liked him. I know was it 1983 that we lost him, that he passed away?
I know it was either right before, I think it was right before Vince Jr. bought the company from his dad. Because
right.
I remember hearing that the death of Ernie Roth was one of the, it was almost like a hurdle that would have had to have been crossed because Ernie Roth was so well thought of within the industry. And so with that, I hate to put it this way, with that hurdle out of the way, it was something that allowed Vince to clear certain barriers that Ernie Roth would have put in front of him about taking the company national and going into other people's areas.
Yeah, and I don't remember the specifics, but if I recall correctly, he was managing Sergeant Slaughter at the time. And I think that was the impetus for Slaughter turning babyface. Like somehow with Ernie gone, with his passing, Slaughter had kind of lost his way. If I'm, again, it's 37 years ago, but I remember somehow those two were connected. This is a fun match. It's not a match that's going to change your life, but it's a title change when titles really meant something, first off. So being able to see that is pretty cool. Patera, only the second IC champion. I wanted to ask him if he was in the tournament in Rio de Janeiro. Yeah, and see what kind of answer I got. But we were kind of strapped for time. I didn't get a chance. Good match. The finish was a little funky to me because you've got Gilberto Roman. And Gilberto, I don't know, 5'3", 5'4", a little pudgy. But he's supposed to be taking a ref bump, and he's positioning himself. So somebody's getting whipped into the ropes, and Gilberto's there, but Gilberto doesn't get hit. So he moves over by a couple of feet and catches the guy on the rebound and gets hit, which I just thought was funny. He's so telegraphing it, you could see it. Good match. What I really liked about this match, something we touched on in the beginning, Patera and the Grand Wizard on commentary, and Vince is the straight man. Vince is the Seinfeld in a sense, but these two are gold. But did you happen to catch the setup for the interviews after the match when they're doing the commentary? It is literally, so I think it's in Hamburg. It looks like it's at that Hamburg field house, and it's literally a card table with three.
Yes, that's right. Okay, yeah, I see what you're talking about now.
Oh my God! Like no expense paid.
Exactly.
Get this shit out of storage. Let's just sit down and we'll just talk right now. Terrible.
So yeah, well, the first thing that I noticed, you mentioned Gilberto Roman. Gilberto Roman, for the younger listeners out there, he was the guy at the Madison Square Garden shows that would always seemingly get the midget tag team match. He was used as the comedic foil Like, he was the one that the midgets would bite in the ass, or, they would run beneath his leg. So I was a little surprised to see Gilberto Roman used in a fairly big program like the Intercontinental title. That was the first thing. The match is, as Barry said, other than, I don't want to poo-poo it and say it was a horrible match. It certainly wasn't, because you had two great competitors in there. But, was this a match that was going to win like a Reserver Match of the Year? No, not necessarily. It was still a really good match. But what you have here is Patera and the Wizard basically offering a running commentary on what was going on, and they are absolutely hilarious. As Barry said, playing off one another. Roth is the straight man for Patera, as Patera is just throwing just verbal bombs out. And, and then there, Vince chiming in he knew enough when to stay away, because these guys were just gold going on. That's gold, Jerry, gold. And,
about Banya.
Yeah,
yes.
Banya. And so Vince knew well enough to stay away, but he did have the one thing where he said, a fan at ringside swears that he heard you submit to the figure 4 from Pat Patterson. And, Patera's response is just hilarious. So as good as the match is, the commentary raises it. It's like, if you have like a 3 or 3.5 star match, and this is about 11, 12 minutes, the commentary, you got to give it an extra whole star, because it turns it into like a 4, maybe a 4.25 match, just because the commentary is so funny, and they're so good as they, are just putting themselves over and talking about how Backlund's going to be next. Patera has Patterson in the bear hug, and he says, can you imagine the way that Patterson's screaming here? Just imagine if that was Bob Backlund and how he would be reacting. He'd be screaming too, I think. And it's just really funny stuff, Bear.
And I think that was one thing with this match as well. Patterson was clearly being written off at this stage. And I think he was transitioning his role at this stage also. But this whole thing was really a setup for Backlund, because Backlund's name is dropped every 30 seconds. Backlund's running for me. Backlund couldn't handle me, all that. So I know I know he was the IC champion, which was being positioned as the number one challenger for Backlund. And that's what I think. And I don't know, I know that Patterson had started to wind down at this stage, and he wound up doing commentary for Vince. Was this, do you know, Jeff, was this before or after his program with Slaughter? Do you know?
I think his program with Slaughter would have come after this.
Okay, and I thought so, from a standpoint, time-wise, but this is good, though. I would still recommend, because if you want to hear wrestling commentary the way we heard it in the 70s and how it was so much fun, this is the perfect example of something like that.
Yeah, if you were a fan of Piper in Georgia, of Michael Hayes in the UWF, the smart-ass commentary with a match, you will absolutely love this. And, as I sit there and listen to this, I was like, my God, why did they put Patera in a commentary spot? Because, he was, other than he's such a loose cannon, I guess they were probably worried about what he was going to say. So, and of course, we will post a link to this match in our Facebook group, Breaking Kayfabe with Bowdren Barry. Now, Barry, real quick, I want to discuss the wife and I just returning within the last day or so from our vacation in Savannah, which was, of course, Plan C. As I discussed last week, originally was Philadelphia, then it was South Florida, then it was Savannah. And so we went there, and naturally it rained for 2 days. So we got to do that. But, Barry, you mentioned that you had been there quite a few times, and you were a fan of the food scene in Savannah. And boy, did we take advantage of that. So let me discuss real quickly a couple things we had. First of all, I went to one restaurant. We had the shrimp and grits. I believe it's called the Mrs. Bowdren will have to help me out on this. It's the Crystal Ale House or something like that. The Crystal Beer Parlor is or Crystal Beer Garden, something like that. It was very near the hotel. So we had the shrimp and grits. And then, Barry, I posted a picture of it in our group. I'm sure you probably saw it. Lou made mention of it before we started recording. Crystal Beer Parlor, Mrs. Bowdren says. So you can Google that, Barry. But what they had for dessert, Barry, was a deep fried pound cake with a side of vanilla ice cream and some chocolate fudge sauce, a little whipped cream on the side. It was a cardiac arrest special, no question about it. The cholesterol was going through the ceiling after we shared the piece. Oh, my God, Barry, how good, when I sent you that picture, how good did that piece of pound cake look?
And I forget what my response was, but I was just gushing over that photo
Yes.
because it looks amazing. So first off, you've taken pound cake, which doesn't need to be deep fried, but really deep frying it's only going to make it better. So you've deep fried it, you've topped it with ice cream. What was the sauce again? Was it a bourbon sauce?
No, it was like a fudge sauce.
Fudge sauce.
Chocolate fudge topping kind of thing. And it's sparing no calories whatsoever. And in the immortal words of the boys from Van Halen, I love some pound cake, Barry. So I think they were talking about a different kind of pound cake there, though.
Yep.
So next we went to, I believe, the Savannah Tap House. And my daughter had gone there on her anniversary with her husband. And she had texted us and said, you have to come here because you have to try their egg rolls with mac and cheese in the middle. Oh my.
Again, how are you going to go wrong if you're deep frying mac and cheese, right? So
Well,
you can't.
What was good was, unlike, you go to a Chinese joint, you get the egg roll. The egg roll is usually pretty hard. Like when you bite into it, there's a definite crunch. This was almost like the egg roll was made with like a croissant or something like that. That kind of, I don't want to say bread, but it was almost like a croissant type of texture. And so they rolled up the mac and cheese in it and then deep fried it. So my point is that the outside of it was not like where you crunch into it. It was like very flaky, almost like the top of a biscuit. And then you get into the middle and it's the mac and cheese. Oh my God in heaven, it was good, Barry.
It sounds really good.
Yeah. And then we got to the main event of the evening, which was the fried chicken. Fried chicken, as my doctor said, oh my God, you're going to become a diabetic here, that had been marinated in sweet tea. Have you ever heard of that, Barry?
I've heard of foods marinated in sweet tea. I don't think I've ever tried it, though. And
it has a, they bring out, it's on a thing of mashed potatoes with the sweet tea marinade as like a dipping sauce. It was absolutely friggin' amazing. Folks, I got to tell you, if you're ever looking for a food town to go to on vacation, let me tell you, you can't go wrong with Savannah because, wow, my wife and I were there basically 3 days, 2 nights kind of thing. And, if we had unlimited budgets, there were at least 70 other hotels. Because, you put top 10 restaurants in Savannah in the Google. And what happens is you end up with, like you get your places where you're going to have a burger that's $55 or something like that. Just
right.
Like really ridiculously overpriced. But you can find very reasonably priced restaurants where the food is unbelievable. Barry, before I didn't want to go without mentioning. I told you I had a restaurant question, and if you don't mind, I'm going to throw this question at you. It's from David White, friend of the show. Thank you, David, for submitting the question. David writes, "Here is a restaurant question you may want to ask Barry. My wife and I had been to a restaurant several times in the past. This is not a chain and is an upper scale in terms of customers. Popular with the yuppie crowd. Very good food and atmosphere. One time, pre-pandemic, when my wife was working nights, I went there to get a table and was going to order for her as she was on her way during her dinner break. They refused to seat me, or even after I explained what the situation was. I also explained that I had dropped a lot of money in their establishment. Their reasoning was that I would be holding up a table that may or may not be used by 2 people. They got the owner and she said, quote, she owned the place and, quote, that's the way it is. Truly shitty attitude. Of all places we could have went, we chose this place and were treated like crap. We have never been back. So Barry, he wants to know, is this standard in the business?" Thank you, David, for your question.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm curious what the restaurant. David lives in Tallahassee. So I'm curious what the restaurant is. So 2 things with this, and we'll break it down. We'll deconstruct it. Is this standard practice in a restaurant? It can be. It is. I've worked in many restaurants where we would only seat complete parties. It's a little different when it's 1 versus 2. But the way, if it's Friday night, let's say hypothetically, let's say you have 10 tables in a restaurant. It's Friday night. You're on a 90-minute wait. And somebody walks in and wants to be seated automatically and says to you, oh, I'll go ahead and order for the other person. 9 times out of 10, they don't order for the other person. That table, somebody is sitting there waiting for the other person to show up. And you've now, instead of the table, an hour, hour and a half. It's now going 2 to 2.5 hours. So it is, New York City, it's almost universal, especially during a busier time or a busier shift. The party has to be complete. And it can't be that I'm going to order the food for you, because again, I could order your food. You still may show up in 45 minutes, which is then going to hold the table even longer. So it is. And I can't fault them for having that policy, because a lot of restaurants do. However, going off of what David said, the owner sounds like she really had a shitty attitude. And instead of saying it's my restaurant and I can do what I want, try to explain it to somebody, because one of the first things that I was always taught was explain your decision, explain the reasoning behind you making that decision. And a lot of times you can diffuse a situation just by rationally explaining it. So I could see where David would be upset, because the owner does sound like she had a shitty attitude, but this is common practice in a lot of restaurants.
Okay, so now as we begin to wrap up this episode of Breaking Kayfabe with Bowdren Barry, I do have one final question. It's from friend of the show, Jamie Ward, longtime friend of both of ours. Jamie wants to know, as I was discussing, it was a post that was on the group's page. He wanted to know, does my boy Gunny eat salad? So before I answer that question, because I know that Barry's dog, Ozzy, has a very special diet, would any of the items that you feed Ozzy be the kind of things you would find in a salad?
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
So give me some examples of the kind of stuff that you
plain lettuce, Ozzy. So so we feed, and we've talked about this. I make chicken, vegetables, potatoes, grains, and I make Ozzy's food. But one of the things we do is that if I have leftover lettuce that maybe, I've cut it up for a salad, it's going to go bad in a day, I will give some to Ozzy. The same with fruit, blueberries and raspberries, which you can give your dogs. Ozzy will eat lettuce. Now, in salads, it's different. You can't give a dog a tomato. You should never do that. Onions are an absolute no.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
No. Yeah.
They both are, and those are the two things I usually eat in a salad. But something like green beans, the last 2 nights I've made green beans in my house, and they're fantastic. And Ozzy sits there and just drools. So some people would put that, but carrots, I don't put it in my salad, but carrots is something that Ozzy eats all the time. So
now, do you give him cooked carrots or raw? How do you do it?
I give them both. So I'll cook them and I'll mash them up. And then sometimes I'll even give him raw carrots, and I'll give him a whole raw carrot that he can chew on.
Okay. So I will say now, to answer Jamie's question to me, that my boy Gunny is a bit like me, someone on the fussy side, not a huge veggie eater, more of a guy. And we don't just give him the canned dog food, anything like that. We give him generally the kibble, the dog roughage. And we'll give him maybe a spoonful or two of a regular wet dog food, as they say. But my wife also includes, he loves stuff like eggs. But one of the things, when Gunny went through his own little cancer scare last year, when he had the tumor and we had to change his diet based on some stuff that was going on with his liver. And it's something that for those of you out there who are dog owners, if you've never tried this with your dog, I can wholeheartedly recommend. If you put a couple of sweet potatoes in the oven and cook them up, and then kind of smash them, put them in with your dog's food. Both my dogs absolutely love sweet potatoes. And I know I don't have to ask you, because I know that Ozzy is a big sweet potato dog too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. He loves sweet potatoes. So we'll do it. And even with you mentioned the eggs, we do the eggs a lot. Eggs are a great source of protein and really inexpensive. So with Ozzy, I usually will get 18. If I make a batch of food, let's say if I'm making a batch that lasts maybe 6 days, maybe a week, I'll cook up 18 eggs and I'll scramble maybe a dozen of those eggs, and then I'll do the other 6 as hard boiled. So he'll get a mix of scrambled and hard boiled green beans, pumpkin, sweet potato, chicken. I give him either brown rice or quinoa, and he eats it up. He loves it. And here's the best part. Ozzy eats more now than he's ever eaten before. And it's less weight on his body, because a lot of that canned food, they're putting filler, and it's all fatty shit that's in there. So yeah. I make him his food. It's maybe 90 minutes a week that I do it, and then I've got enough for the entire week, and he loves it. I feel that I'm doing the right thing by my dog. I would do it for my kids. I would do it for Ozzy, and I know that you would do it for Gunny. Jeff,
absolutely.
I will come down to Georgia, and this is what we'll do when the pandemic ends. I will come down to Georgia. We will cook up a batch of food for your dogs, and then we'll take a trip to Savannah and we'll do a little food excursion.
There you go. So, that being said, feel free to submit your dog-related questions to Barry and I, and we will do our best to answer. You notice, Barry, we went full circle. We started off the Ken Patera interview with the dog being in heat, and now we've come full circle to the end of the show where we're talking healthy food for your dogs and keeping them in good shape. So once again, on behalf of my co-host Barry Rose and our producer, sweet Lou Kipilman, we are a production of the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network. We will talk to you next week.